Hello, welcome to Periwinkle's Corner. I am Periwinkle Deepforest, and I am here to present to you a show in which we talk about GLBT art and literature, how creative we are, the impact we have on society around us, and in most cases, in ways that the general public might not even be aware of. The weight of what we do, the political and spiritual and loving statements that we have to present to the rest of the world. And today, in line with that, I'm going to be sharing with you a short story taken from this rather beat up book called Best American Gay Fiction of 1996. And it is an anthology with various stories written by a number of authors. I encourage you, as with any other material that I use on this show, to look at the information that we provide for the titles and the authors and so forth, so that you can maybe look for specific pieces that you've liked or additional work from the same authors after you've seen them presented here. There's a great wealth of material out there by a great number of authors, and artistic pieces done by any number of amazingly skilled people. And I would encourage you to, after having a sampling from this show, go out and look for some of the names that we present to you here and see what you think of their additional work. Encourage your friends to learn more about it. And I seem to remember that phrase on another television program years ago, learn more about it. Anyway, I encourage you to share with us any ideas that you might have as well, material that you might be aware of that we might be able to use in the future. We will have art and sculpture and writings and various different types of material that the GLBT community has done. So I look forward to sharing these with you. And send your comments to us if you're impressed by what you see or angered by what you see, or share with us what your feelings are. Feel encouraged to send your comments and share what you think. So the story that I'm going to read today is written by J.L. Schneider, and the title is After the Change. State Trooper Rita Benson smelled the dough as soon as she got out of the cruiser. It was a strong airborne scent of refuse and blood that she easily followed to a shallow ditch in front of a single-story cape. The dough's breath was weak, then got stronger as Rita approached. The dough tried to get up. Only her front legs worked, clawing desperately at the ground, the lower half of her body stiff and useless. Broken back, Rita thought. Exhausted from the effort, the dough lowered her head and turned one fearful eye to Rita. Through the kitchen window of the house, Rita saw a man on the telephone. When their eyes met, he hung up the phone. He came out a moment later carrying a glass. "Lemonade," he offered. "You call about the deer?" she said. Bob Zielinski did. He held out both his hands, the right one with the glass. Rita instinctively offered her right hand, halting when she realized there was only his left to shake. Bob took her fingers and curled them over his palm as if he were about to lead her somewhere, perhaps through a waltz. She dropped her hand and took the glass. In the following silence, they could hear the dough's shallow breathing in the late August afternoon heat. "She's on my property," Bob said. He pushed his cap back and scratched his round head. "But I didn't want to shoot her in case one of you boys happened by and saw me hunting out of season. That's the law, ain't it?" "That's right, mister. Call me Bob." "Sergeant Shook sent you?" "Polly and I went to high school together. You must be new. Just start troopering?" "I've been on the force for a year." Rita caught Bob's eyes sliding down her front when she turned to look at a pickup and a Jeep slowing in front of the house. The pickup pulled into Bob's driveway, followed by the badly rusted Willis. A thin man in jeans and a t-shirt with a sharp pumpkin orange widow's peak slicing into his forehead got out of the pickup. What looked like a bear got out of the Willis. The man's head and face were covered with thick black hair, his body round as a barrel. Rita saw Bob catch the men's eyes. "Still breathing," the large man said after they formed a circle around the doe. The voice came out of his massive black beard without moving a hair. The doe started kicking again. "Still plenty of life," the thin man added. They watched as the doe tried to stand. When she gave up and lowered her head, the thin man said, "Me and Steen just dropped by to borrow your vegetable steamer, Bob." Steen seemed to be smiling behind his beard, perhaps even laughing. It was hard to tell. "Steen, Tom, this here's Trooper..." Bob looked at her name tag. "Benson. She's come to shoot this poor doe got hit by a car." Steen pulled up his stomach with both hands, then slowly offered his right hand in Rita's direction. When she went to take it, he pulled it away in a continuous movement and scratched his beard. Tom quickly reached in and shook Rita's exposed hand. She looked at Bob, then at the men, then at the deer. In her periphery, Rita saw the men's eyes clicking like telegraphs. "Yep, gonna have to shoot her," Tom said. "She's probably got young ones somewhere," Steen said. "Real young. Too bad." "Too bad," Tom said. "Shame," Bob said. The three men walked back to the Willis, and Steen handed out beers. They leaned against the Jeep and eyed Rita's 5'4" frame, her short brown hair cut Dutch boy in the back, her stiff spine and straight shoulders. Steen sniffed the air, then whispered, "Game makes me hard." Rita took small sips of lemonade, her jaw jutting out and staying out after she lowered the glass. She heard what Steen had said. She concentrated on Tom. She could see he wasn't in on it, just going along, his eyes dropping when she caught him. Bob drank his beer and looked at his house. Only Steen looked directly at her. "You got any boys?" he called to her. He didn't wait for an answer. "I got 4. They all had the fear in them at first, but I got 'em cured. The youngest is 7, and I already got him on the scent. He's good in the woods. That's where I give him the talk." Rita took out her gun. She faced them with the pistol in one hand and the empty lemonade glass in the other. "You know, the talk," Steen offered, as he encircled his stomach with one hand and pulled it up. "I give it to him on the trail. The birds and the bees and the little baby does." She couldn't see it, but she knew there was a leer behind the fur. "You have that thing properly registered?" Rita asked Steen, looking at the ancient Willis. "Yes, ma'am," Steen said. His tongue came out like a snake head and swabbed his beard. "She's my baby." He pounded the hood until it bounced up and down. "You may have come here for the vegetable steamer," Rita said, looking directly at each of them. She paused at Tom, knowing what he was going through, trying to be tough, one of the boys. She knew what he was feeling, as if she were feeling it herself. Look at her. "But if I see you on the road, any of you, you'll get a breathalyzer, understood?" After a pause, Steen said, putting a quiver in his voice, "Bob, can we stay overnight tonight? Watching a deer get shot point blank, especially when it's looking at you, staring right at you with that big brown eyes, always makes me a little upset. I might have to have more than one beer to calm me down, and I wouldn't want to drive after I've had more than one beer." "I know what you mean," Bob said. "Of course you can." Trooper Benson walked over to Bob, handed the empty glass to him and said, "Stay here." When they thought she was out of earshot, Bob whispered, "She's got a nice tight ass." Not enough of it. I like 'em big, Steen said. Big, Tom chimed in quietly. Trooper Benson stood 10 yards away from the deer, raised her revolver, aimed, and fired. After the echo faded and a small cloud of dust cleared, the doe was still breathing, the one terrified eye still looking at her. Steen said loudly, I once shot a doe, didn't get her clean, so I had to track her for 3 miles. When I found her, she was still alive. And wouldn't you know, I was out of cartridges. No, Bob popped his eyes. So I had to slit her throat. Rita fired again. Another explosion of dirt kicked up at the deer's head, missing. 2 parallel drops of sweat rolled out of her hair at her temples. That must have been hard to do, Tom said. Rita could hear him talking to her, trying to soften it, make it easy for her. Then Steen answered, Nah, it was easy. A third report sounded. When Trooper Benson lowered her gun, the doe was still breathing. Tom stepped into Rita's periphery, halted, letting her know he was in her field, then walked over to the deer. He made his hand into a pistol, his fingers tight as metal, and brought it close to the deer's head. You gotta get close, Tom said. Get right behind the ear. There'll be a little blood, but not too much. He moved back with the others. Rita stepped forward and raised her revolver again. She used 2 hands to aim at a spot behind the doe's ear. She stepped a little closer. She fired. The report's echo faded into the hills, and the deer was dead. In the silence that followed, Steen giggled. She knew her pants leg had been splattered, but she didn't look down. She didn't look at the man. She holstered her revolver. I'll call the DPW to get it off your property, Mr. Zielinski. I'd appreciate that, ma'am. Don't want to cross the law. She slowly swept the men. She looked forward to busting Steen someday. Bob and Sergeant Shook would probably have a good laugh. It was only Tom she wanted to say something to. Something like, You can change. Just walk away. She waited, but he wouldn't look at her. Gentlemen, she said, touching her hat. She walked back to the cruiser and checked in with the dispatcher, sat for a moment smelling the blood, then drove away. As Rita drove back to the station, she realized the sergeant had chosen her for this job. It's what rookies had to go through. But it wasn't being a rookie that momentarily filled her with regret. She pulled off the side of the road and cut the engine. After taking a deep breath, she took out her wallet and pulled a photograph from a hidden pocket she had made in the leather. She studied the man in the picture. His sad, empty face, the expression of hopelessness, as if he was dying, as if he was a trapped animal. She looked at the photograph of herself, at the man she used to be. If she were still a man, they would have laughed openly. If she still had her other body, their scorn would have been a begrudging sign of acceptance. She knew how they were. She thought about what the men had done to her, the way they had mocked her, especially Steen. She crushed the photograph in her fist. They would never change, and it was too late for Tom. And she still wished, as she had when she was a little boy, unable to participate in the mob cruelty of little boys, that she could walk right up to things and kill them. This is a fairly short story, and I had a little bit of difficulty reading through it because of the way it was written, but I must admit that even after reading the title myself for the first time, I didn't catch the nuance of it until I got very near the end of the story and realized that it was referring to a transgendered person. And I think, although this is very much a transgendered person in an unusual setting, with a population of people that would be quite used to jeering and making fun and that sort of thing, that is not necessarily a situation that's true for every transgender person making the transformation. But it certainly does speak to the degree of alienation that many transgender people feel inside their own bodies and then inside the world at large, because people don't know how to deal with how they look and how they present. And it certainly does a good job, in my opinion, of speaking to the need for understanding of what changes people go through. Even if it isn't a change in gender, it can be any other change. But not for my proselytizing about it, but I would encourage you to look at some additional short stories by that same author, because there's a whole list of them that I encountered when I was looking through this. J.L. Schneider. And I do not know if this author is a transgender person, but I would encourage you to read some of the other work, because a lot of it focuses on those issues as well. So once again, we finished a segment of Periwinkle's Corner, and you've gotten to experience a little piece of something that might be very different for you. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.